G'day mate, welcome back to the channel. I'm FPL Root and welcome back to another FPL video. So the 2024-2025 season is nearly here and some of the prices have been revealed for some of your top FPL assets that have performed well last year, some new players as well and some position changes. So there is a slight difference with I guess how this is going to run this season. It does seem like their prices are a little bit fairer, I'd say, and potentially we might have to look for more bargains. So this video is going to be important for you if you want to try and find them bargains from early on and get them into your team, even though we can't actually build our teams yet. If you are new to the channel, please make sure you do subscribe. I'm going to be producing 3 videos every single week on FPL, at least 3 videos, and helping you win your mini leagues and climb the ranks. Also, like this video as well. It does really support the channel and it's completely free. So it would really help me out. So we'll start off with 2 of FPL's giants. We'll start off with obviously Erling Haaland, the Premier League goal scoring record breaker for one season. Also, he finished top goal scorer last season and he's broken another record. He's the highest ever priced player in FPL. So he comes in at 15 million, which is it's just ridiculous. When it did come out, I was expecting 14 million, which is what it was last year. But for him to go up 1 million in price, considering he had a worse season than he did the season before, was a little bit shocking. But to be honest, I don't really hate it. I think it gives us a decision to make on whether we do want to put Haaland in our drafts or not. Whereas last season at 14 million, it was probably easy enough just to have him in your team. Whereas this season, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a conversation around it. For example, though, how record-breaking this actually is. People like Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, players like that haven't actually reached this price. They've reached 14 million, Ronaldo and Henry, but yeah, 15 million hasn't been done by anyone. So a massive deal by FPL to make this a thing and make Haaland the most expensive FPL player ever. Do I still think he's worth the money? I think yes, if he performs like he's done the last 2 seasons, but it definitely makes more of a conversation. We'll go into it a bit later on where we look at the prices of other players, but you can literally get 2 decent forwards for the same price as one Haaland forward. But I think it just mainly depends on what other premium assets are doing well at the time. So for example, Mo Salah, who's on the screen now, if Mo Salah is actually performing, then I actually don't think, I think it's probably worth saving the money and maybe getting Salah as your premium option and then maybe going for a cheaper midfielder, because Salah's actually only 12.5 million, which is still a lot of money, but it's 1.5 million, well, 2.5 million cheaper than Haaland, which again, that just sounds ridiculous. Because if you think about it, 2.5 million cheaper than Salah is a 10 million midfielder. So yeah, it's incredible the price difference, and considering Salah is now a midfielder, so he gets an extra point. Well, he's always been a midfielder, but he is a midfielder, so he gets an extra point for a goal, gets a point for an assist. He's hit 200 points in 7 seasons in a row, which is again ridiculous. Yes, you could argue that with no Jurgen Klopp, it could affect the way Salah plays. But I think looking at the fixtures, which I don't have on screen, but I'll just read them out to you, is Ipswich away for Salah, Brentford at home, Man United away, Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away. Some of the best fixtures out there, and especially match day 1, where Liverpool do play Ipswich and Man City play Chelsea away. So potentially you could argue that Salah is probably the best captain choice out of these 2. I think if I could pick one, I'd probably go into the season with Salah, even though there is some uncertainty without Jurgen Klopp being at Liverpool. Overall, I think Salah's price is okay. Haaland's price is probably, I would say, a bit too much, but I think it does make the game interesting. And at the end of the day, it is a game. So the more fun we can have, the better it is. So let's get on to the rest of the players.
Yo, listen up, Rue is stepping up the game, where fantasy Premier League runs in his veins. From transfers to captains, he's always on top, guiding you through every game week non-stop. They say Rue got that Salah flow. Welcome to the channel, enjoy the show. Wild cards, free hits with so much vibe. If you're hunting for success, then make sure you subscribe.
So next up, I did want to talk about Ollie Watkins, the man of the moment, obviously England hero, scoring that goal against the Netherlands. He starting the season at 9 million, which is 6 million cheaper than Haaland, which, if you just think about it, it's incredible. And he got 37 goal involvements last season, so 19 goals, 18 assists, and with no penalties. So now that Douglas Luiz is actually left, he's gone. He's gone to Juventus. Does that mean that Ollie Watkins is going to be on penalties? Potentially. If he is, I think 9 million is an absolute bargain considering his performance last season. And you can see his stats that I've got on screen now. They are from Fantasy Football Hub, and I have partnered with them this season. So if you did want to join up and sign up for their membership, if you click the link in the description, it does obviously help me out and help me grow the channel and be able to make better videos. So if you were going to sign up to them, definitely check out the link in the description. But this screenshot from them gives kind of an overall of how good Ollie Watkins actually was last season. So like I said, 19 goals, 18 assists. It's ridiculous. He's basically got a goal return every game he's played, every appearance. His expected goals is 16, so 16.7, so he's outperformed that. His expected assist was only 4.02, and he's obviously smashed that. Big chances 33, big chances created at 11, and key passes 45. So some really, really good stats for Ollie Watkins there, especially the big chances. So potentially he could have, I know he's only expected around 17 goals, but if he converted a few more of the big chances, he could have got 20 plus goals easily. And I think if he does get penalties, that's going to be very, very good for Ollie Watkins. And at 6 million cheaper than Haaland, for me, he's a must own at some point in the season. But it does come bound to that some point. I don't think Villa's fixtures are the best going into the start of the season. They've got West Ham away, Arsenal at home. So that's tough, but then they've got a good run in. So I think from game week 3 onwards, I think Aston Villa players are going to look good, and especially Ollie Watkins. They've got Leicester away, newly promoted, Everton at home, West Ham at home, Ipswich away, newly promoted. So I think the first 2 games could be tough, and especially, obviously, England have made it through to the final, so Ollie Watkins could be a little bit late back for pre-season, and he could be obviously tired and stuff like that. So I would probably hold off with Ollie Watkins until game week 3. But other than that, 6 million cheaper than Haaland, 37 goal involvements last season in 37 apps, 33 big chances. Yeah, I think he's a guy to go for, and especially at that price. So now we will move on to North London. We've got Tottenham and Arsenal players here, talking about them next. 2 players that did start last season, well, finished and started last season as midfielders, but were playing as forwards, and now they've been reclassified as forwards. We'll start off with Richarlison, who actually started last season as a 7 million midfielder, the same as Havertz actually. He's now been bumped up to 7, well, he's 7 million still, but he's been bumped up to being a forward, which obviously does lose a point for the goal. But I think I understand it. There was a lack of forwards last season, so I think that's why FPL have done this. And obviously he does play up front, so it's only fair that he was a forward. I'm not too sure why he actually ended up being a midfielder. I think because when Kane was at Spurs, he was mainly playing on the left. But like I said, Richarlison for 7 million, I think could be an absolute bargain. If Spurs don't buy a forward, I think Son is going to be playing left wing this season, and I think Brennan Johnson and Kulusevski are going to be battling out for right wing. And I think Richarlison, when he has played for Spurs, has done well. And obviously he did have a few injuries last season, but he's going to be fresh. He missed out on the Brazil squad for Copa America, so he's going to be fresh going into the new season. And for me, 7 million starting Spurs forward, I think is too good to pass up, but only if they don't buy forward. Next up, Kai Havertz, again started the season at 7 million, but now he's gone up to 8 million for this season, for the 2024-2025 season. He's obviously been moved to forward because he's playing up front for Arsenal. For me, I don't love this option. I think the only reason I would love this option is if Saka is 10 million plus. If Saka is 10 million plus, then you could potentially argue that Havertz could be a good option to go for. But for me, I'd still rather an Odegaard, depending on his price. I think not getting that extra point for a goal, etc., for Havertz does kind of limit him potentially. I think there's going to be better forwards out there, but like I said, 8 million. If Arsenal do have a good run, you could argue that it could be a decent player to go for. Their fixtures, again, not on screen, but Wolves at home, Villa away, Brighton at home, Tottenham away, City away, Leicester at home. So tough start for Arsenal. Villa away, Spurs away, City away in their first 5 games. So I'd probably stay clear, to be honest. But Richarlison, again, his fixtures are a little bit better, I'd say. They've got Leicester away, Everton at home. Then they've got Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, Brentford at home, Man United away. So Arsenal at home, Newcastle away, Man United away in the first 6 games could be tough as well. But I think for that price, for 7 million, I think Richarlison could be a very, very nice option to go for. So next up, we've got another highlight from Fantasy Football Hub. So 7.5 million forwards, Mateta and Tony. We'll talk about Mateta first. So obviously he had a great kind of end to the season when the new Crystal Palace manager came in and took over from Roy Hodgson. He absolutely smashed it. He ended up on 16 goals, 7 assists, which is a really, really good turnout for him, considering the start of the season wasn't great. Kind of on the other hand, Tony didn't really play, obviously, at the start of the season because he had that ban. But when he came back, he got a few goals, but he kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. Didn't really put in the performances that we know he can do. With these two strikers, I think Mateta probably is overpriced, to be honest. I think Palace kind of go through this stage of getting a new manager, playing really well. Everyone loves their players, and then the next season they don't actually do well. I think this is a similar case, to be honest with you. And I think the fact that Elise has left, he's gone to Bayern Munich. Eze's in the final with England. Would he be back in kind of time, or would he be back fresh to play? And the fact that Mateta has gone to the Olympic squad with France and he won't be back till the 10th of August, which is 6 days before game week 1. I think that could cause some issues for this being a good option. But definitely at some point in the season, you could argue that Mateta could be a nice forward option to go for if he does perform like he did last season. Looking at Ivan Toney now, 7.5 million is a very, very good price for him, I feel like. Obviously, I've just mentioned his kind of ban and stuff like that, but we kind of got to forget about that and we just got to look at it like a fresh season now. He didn't perform like he should have done when he came back, but I understand being away from football, not playing for that long, is going to be tough. I think the key thing to add for Toney is, yes, I do think he is a good price, but Brentford's fixtures are pretty bad, to be honest, the first 6. They've got Palace at home, Liverpool away, Southampton at home, City away, Spurs away, West Ham at home. So Liverpool, City, Spurs away in the first 5 games. For me, that's a big avoid. I know Toney can do it against the big boys, but for me, that's a hard avoid. But for Ivan Toney, there's one thing I would add. A lot of teams are after him. I think, to be honest, maybe City, Chelsea, United probably don't need him, but I think Arsenal and Spurs could do with him. So if he does go to Arsenal, Spurs, for me, he's a must own at 7.5 million. You know he's going to be taking pens. You know he can get goals in this league. And even last season when he didn't do the business, obviously not well, he did pay 17 times still, but he obviously didn't do it like we know him to do. He still ended up on 7 returns, which again is not great for him, but it's still an okay return. And in terms of big chances, Mateta had 27 and he played 35 games. Toney had 14 and he played 17 games. So he's still getting the chances where kind of Mateta is probably, you could argue, a bit more clinical than someone like Toney. But for me, yeah, if he does go to Spurs or Arsenal, he is a must own. So now I wanted to talk about a couple cheap midfielders. So they're both coming at 5.5 million, and they both had a pretty good season last season. They ended up on 100 plus points, which for the teams they play for is really, really good. Bournemouth and Forest. So it is Semenyo and Callum Hudson-Odoi that I'm going to be talking about. Semenyo was classified as a forward last season, so I feel like it limited him because it was always going to be Solanke the option to go for, whereas now he is a midfielder, so potentially I actually think he's a better option. He could be a very, very nice option as a 5th midfielder. He did do pretty well last season, but again, you're always going to go for Solanke if you were going to go for a Bournemouth attacker in terms of forward. Hallam Hudson-Odoi had I think, a pretty good season as well. He was probably the most consistent he's been since his kind of early days at Chelsea. And Forest, it is a tough one because you don't know how they're going to perform this season. You don't know whether they're kind of going to stop fighting relegation and actually, I guess, put together a good midfield or a good mid-table challenge. But obviously, they did have points deduction last year, so it did hamper them in that way. But their fixtures to start the season are actually pretty good. Bournemouth at home, they've got Southampton away, Wolves at home, Liverpool away, Brighton at home, Fulham at home. So some good home games in there, and they play Southampton, a newly promoted side, away. But again, it just depends whether they're going to turn up this season and kind of put together that challenge for mid-table, I'd say, which I think they should be aiming for. Bournemouth, incredible season last season. They've done so well. They've got Forest away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, Chelsea at home, Liverpool away, Southampton at home, which is a mixed bag for me. I only really see these options as the fifth midfielder. Other than that, I'd probably stay away from these teams because we don't know whether they're going to, I guess, perform as well as they did last season for Bournemouth or better than they did last season for Forest. So now we will look at another Fantasy Football Hub highlight. So like I said, if you do want to look at stuff like this, get your team rated by AI, sign up to their membership. They're doing a 50% off special at the minute, so check the link in the description. If you do register, it does help me out a lot, so it would be grateful if you did use their link if you were going to subscribe to their membership. So Gordon and Bowen, 7.5 million. What seasons they had, to be honest. Bowen a little bit under the radar, and he did actually do very well. And Gordon absolutely flying last season. His home form was ridiculous, and even towards the end of the season, he did start to perform away from home as well. We'll look at their stats though now from Fantasy Football Hub. So 11 goals, 16 assists, which is ridiculous from Gordon, considering Newcastle didn't have a great season. He was definitely the shining light, as well as Isak. That is 27 goal returns in 35 appearances, which is a very good return, considering he was only, I think he started the season about 5.56 million. Ridiculous. So even 7.5 million, I feel like is cheap if Anthony Gordon does perform like he did last season. In terms of Jared Bowen, I think he's gone under the radar because West Ham didn't have a great season in the league. 16 goals, 6 assists, and he was playing most of the season up front, I felt like. I know Antonio did come in towards one part of the season, but yeah, for me, it's 22 returns in that West Ham side who weren't really attacking. And you know both these players are going to be guaranteed to start. At 7.5 million, I think they're actually really well priced. Bowen was 8 million last season, and it's not like he's had a bad season. So for him to go down in price is, strange and yeah, I guess welcomed. Shots and shots on target, pretty much the same between these two players, but shots in the box is definitely higher for Jared Bowen, 67 and then 52 for Anthony Gordon. So I think you can see from this sort of stat that Bowen is probably the more likely to get a goal, and then Gordon's probably more likely to get an assist. And that does kind of play out in the expected goal and expected assist. So Gordon is 10.03, Bowen is almost 12. And then assists, but Gordon is 5.4 and Bowen is 4.9. So pretty much the same in terms of assists. And then Bowen's probably got a higher goal threat. More big chances for Bowen, again, higher goal threat. Big chances created is more for Gordon, again, better for the assists. And then key passes, which is I think is a big thing for looking at players that you do want to target for getting them assists. 57 for Gordon and 32 for Jared Bowen. For me, the way I'd look at these two, if you were going to be just choosing one, but there's definitely a way that you could get two of them in. If you got two of them, it's the same price as Haaland, which again is still, I kind of like it, but it still baffles me a little bit. But you could argue them two together don't reach Haaland's goals, so you could argue that. But for me, with these two, I think Jared Bowen's the bigger goal threat, but it's just how West Ham are going to perform with their new manager. and their fixtures are one of the worst in terms of the first six. They've got, in terms of the first five, really, they've got Villa at home, Palace away, which can both be tough games, City at home, Fulham away, Chelsea at home, and Brentford away. So a horrible start for West Ham, really, and for their new manager. Whereas Newcastle, a little bit better. They've got Southampton at home, newly promoted side, Bournemouth away, Spurs at home, Wolves away, Fulham away, and Man City at home. So much better in terms of attacking side of things for Newcastle. So I'd probably say, again, if you look at the England thing as well, Gordon's played a few more minutes than Bowen at England, but yeah, for me, I'd probably start the season with Gordon and then see how the new manager does for West Ham and then go from there for Bowen. But if you want to see more stuff like this and laid out like this and get your team rated by AI as well, you can get 50% off right now with the Fantasy Football Hub membership. So just click the link in the description if you are going to register anyway, as it does, again, like I said, help me out. No worries if you don't want to, but yeah, the link's there if you do want to register for it. So now we will look at some cheaper midfielders, and to be honest, one of these is a bit of a shock that he actually is this cheap and that he actually is a midfielder. It is Christopher Nkunku, so these all got released at the same time as the 6.5 million midfielders bracket, which is a huge shock, to be totally honest with you, because Nkunku was a forward. I think he was around 7 million last season, and obviously he didn't play. He had 11 appearances, but he didn't really have a run of games. And when he did play, I feel like he played almost as a second striker, just behind Jackson. So I wouldn't probably class him as a midfielder, but FPL have decided to change him to midfielder. He ended up on 3 goals for the season for Chelsea, but again, you can't really judge that from a player that has spent most of the season injured. But I actually, to be honest, could see him being an option at some point this season. Definitely not from game week 1, because obviously Chelsea do play Man City. Then they have Wolves away, Palace at home, Bournemouth away, West Ham away, Brighton at home. So pretty tough, but at some point in the season, I can definitely see a spot for Christopher Nkunku. Solly March, who spent last season mostly, I'd say, injured. He did do okay. He was probably the most consistent, no, a Brighton midfielder. Matoma spent most of the season injured. But for me, I don't see him being an option at that price point. I think he's just a little bit too expensive for me. Pedro Neto, incredible season last season when he was fit, but again, injuries did hamper him. 6.5 million is an okay price, I think, for him, but no chance with Wolves' starting 6 games. They've probably got the worst of the 6 games to start of the season. If they've got Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Forest away, Newcastle at home, Villa away, Liverpool at home. So for me, stay away from Wolves midfielders. If you were going to go for one, I'd probably start with Nkunku, but for me, I'd probably wait and see how Chelsea do line up under their new manager and where Nkunku does actually play. So next up, we've got Bruno Fernandes. He comes in at 8.5 million, which I think is actually a really reasonable price. I know a lot of you are going to say Man United were terrible last season, and to be honest, they were. But Bruno Fernandes still had an okay season. Not his best, but still an okay season. 19 goal returns, which for me is actually okay. Again, not great, but okay. I think one of the key stats for Bruno Fernandes on this graphic that I've got here is the chances created. So big chances, 13. Okay, he's not really going to be a finisher of chances. You really want him for pens and assists. But big chances created, 23. Okay, not amazing. But the key one for me is key passes. No pun intended. But 114 key passes, which is the highest ever. And he's got the joint most big chances created with Salah on 23. So the chances are there. He's creating the chances. It's just Man United had no one to finish off their chances. So I do feel for him a little bit, and I feel for owners of him last season. But this season, 8.5 million, is Ten Hag going to change the way he plays? I probably can't see it, but if he does, Bruno Fernandes is going to be a great option. He's going to be on pens. We know he can create big chances, as seen on the screen now with this tile. Key passes, the highest there was last season. His appearances, he's only missed 3 games, and they were kind of the 3 last games with an injury. Yeah, he takes shots in the box as well, 39. Yeah, for me, he's always going to be a good asset. It's just, are Man United going to be a good team? If Man United are going to be a good team, then Bruno Fernandes is going to be one of their key players. And obviously, he's on pens and stuff like that. Start of the season, their fixtures are okay. I won't write home about them, but they're okay. Fulham at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, Southampton away, Palace away, Spurs at home. So Liverpool and Spurs in the first two is going to be tough, but again, it just depends how Man United start the season. And if they do well, Bruno Fernandes is going to be a part of that and could be a nice option at 8.5 million. So you could argue picking a goalkeeper is probably the most boring part of the team, but I actually quite like it. I like to find these little hidden gems, but these two are not going to be that. These are not your hidden gems. These are not your cheapest options. These are players that don't play for the top teams, like an Edison, potentially like a David Raya, like a Vicario, like a Allison, but they still have play for solid defences, and that's why they've been bumped up. They both were 4.5 million last season, and they've been bumped up to 5 million this season. And to be honest, it's kind of well rewarded, but I don't like spending more than 4.5 million on a keeper, but I think we might have to this season. Everton were the joint highest number of clean sheets last season with 13, level with City, and they were joint second highest with City, and then 5 behind Arsenal. Pickford was a top scoring keeper, 18 points above David Raya. Obviously, David Raya played 6 fewer games because Ramsdale did start the season, but still very, very good from Pickford. Leno was the third best shot stopper, so in terms of save points and stuff like that, only 3 players made more saves than Fulham's goalkeeper, Bernd Leno. Obviously, Fulham are probably a better team than the teams that did face more shots, so I wouldn't really look into that too much. In terms of goals conceded, though, this is where I don't love the price point for these goalkeepers. Leno's 61, which again is not bad, but okay, and then Pickford's okay, 51. But shots conceded, 538, 523. Clean sheets, 13 and 10. Expected goals conceded, 10 and 9. Big chances conceded, which is a little bit alarming for Leno. 106, 82 to Pickford. And expected goals conceded is 64 for Leno and 56 for Pickford. For me, I think Pickford could be an option. I don't like Leno at all. I think Fulham losing Palhinha to Bayern Munich, who's their defensive midfielder, I think that's just going to lose a lot of security in their team. And for me, I don't want to be paying 5 million for a keeper that, for basically, I don't want to be paying 5 million for a keeper that is playing for a team that are not at least challenging for a European place. I refuse to do it. Pickford, I actually think Everton could push for a top half finish, to be totally honest with you. I think their team is good. Sean Dyche is solid. They had a great season last season. Let's not look at their league position because they did end up getting points deducted. But if it weren't for that, they would have been comfortable mid-table. And I think they can push on and maybe finish in that top half this season. So Pickford, I don't mind. But no, I just wouldn't go there. I think either pay a bit more and get a better keeper or pay a bit less and hope for the best. So now we'll talk about a few of the newly promoted sides. So we do have 3 of their defenders. And to be honest, it's a little bit, I don't know what the word is, uninspiring. Is that a good word to use? We'll start off with Ricardo Pereira, a player that we know if you have played FPL in the past. He's been pretty attacking for Leicester in the past, but at 4.5 million, it could have been a good option if they did keep their manager. So they did obviously have Chelsea's new manager, Enzo Maresca. He's now obviously left, gone to Chelsea, and they've got Steve Cooper, who is still, I'd say, an attacking manager, but Enzo Maresca did play a 5 at the back formation with Pereira inverting, so it did mean he was kind of getting into that midfield position, meaning more chance of getting an assist, getting a goal. Whereas if Steve Cooper does play him as a traditional right back, I'm not sure he's going to be as attacking. And for 4.5 million, it still is a good price, but I just can't see me wanting to go out and buy him unless Leicester do have double game weeks or really, really good fixtures, or they start performing very well. However, next we've got a 4 million defender, which is something that I always look for. Always want 4 million defender in my team. I think if I can save money, just that 0.5 million, that 1 million on a defender, where I've got 5 defenders, I only really need 3. So I can have one backup, 4 million that plays, but I don't really need him. Then I'm always going to go for that. And we've got Taylor Harwood Bellis. Could be a very, very useful option. So he spent the season on loan at Southampton last season, and he's now joined permanently. He was a nailed-on starter for them, and he should be this season. I can't see them buying a player that's been on loan to just sit on the bench. I just don't see how that works. So for 4 million, I think he probably is in everyone's squads. And for me, probably won't play him often, considering I'm not sure how Southampton are going to fare. But towards the first 6 games, you could potentially play him, because I think Southampton's fixtures are actually okay. So they start off tough, Newcastle away, and then they've got Forest at home, Brentford away, Man United at home, Ipswich at home, Bournemouth away. So specifically them Forest, Ipswich and Bournemouth games could be an opportunity to play him. Obviously, it depends on your other players, but if it does work with your team, that could be an opportunity to play him if he is a starter. Then you've also got Leif Davis, so another player from Ipswich. So we've got Leicester, Southampton, now Ipswich. I think stay clear, to be honest. I just can't see a world where I'm going to want a 4.5 million Ipswich defender. I think they're going to be one of the weakest teams in the league. I think their fixtures to start off with are pretty terrible. Liverpool at home, Man City away. Can you get any worse if there was Arsenal in there? Potentially. Then they got Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Southampton away, Everton, Villa at home. But Liverpool City start, just stay clear. Maybe if they got double game weeks, but for me, yeah, I'd just stay clear of Ipswich until you see them play and see if they actually can cut it at this level. That was it for this video. As I've mentioned, I've gone through a few of the price, well, all of the price reveals so far. There's going to be more, so hopefully I will do some videos on them as well. If you've liked the tools I've used in terms of Fantasy Football Hub, I'll leave a link in the description. If you use my link, obviously it does help me out, help me grow the channel. If you do end up getting a membership, which is actually 50% off at the minute. And yeah, but if you can like the video, it's completely free. Subscribe to the channel as well, that's completely free. And yeah, looking forward to more FPL content for the rest of the season.